Previously, we went over the factors of production, those things you need in order to create a product. We went over the three economic questions. And before that, we went over scarcity. This right here is how all of that can kind of interplay within an economy. Because the thing is, within the economy, it's not stagnant, it's not still, it's moving. Economies have to move. If they don't move, well, then you end up, eating your pets. But this is the model that is used to try to show how all the different factors and money and everything is supposed to move around an economy. So when we talk about, economic recessions or boom times or whatever, this is the thing they're kind of looking at and how those things are moving through the economy. So you have three players. All right. Three players that are at the center of all this. You have firms, which are the businesses. You have the government. And then you have households or individuals. Okay. Pretty much the idea is this: mom, dad, five children. They're a household. Single person living in an apartment. They're a household. So this is gonna be kind of one person. This is gonna be multiple people. But it's pretty much the idea is like it's it's kind of seen as one economic unit. Because again, take my parents and five children example. If little Timmy, the middle kid, wants to buy an Xbox, and little Timmy's 3 years old or 4 years old, mommy and daddy will be the ones paying for it. So what happens at the most base level is people want goods and services. They want things from companies. All right. You go to McDonald's, you want a cheeseburger. You go to Best Buy, you want a computer. You go to the theater, you want to watch a movie. So what happens, at this kind of base level is those firms or businesses, they provide goods and services. And those goods and services make their way from the firm into what is called the product market. And kind of a good way to think about it is imagine like a mall. You walk through a mall, you see all these different kinds of stores. The shirt store, the movie store, GameStop, which is evil. I'm kidding. The hat store, the shirt store, all these different stores that sell different products. Think of it kind of like that. But instead of just it being a mall, it is literally like all the stores that could exist. And as households and individuals, we want things from these stores. So we buy them. We buy the game from GameStop, even though they gave us 10 cents for our trade-in. But we get those things. We buy the movie. We watch the movie at the theater. We buy the popcorn. We buy the shirt. We buy the things we want. Now the thing is, we got to buy them. We're not going to go to the hat store and they're going to give us a hat for free. No, we give them money. So the business provides the good and service. We spend our money on those goods and services. And the businesses, they take in that money as revenue. Now the next step is where a lot of people don't really understand when it comes to economics. Because what a lot of people think of is when a company takes in the money, they take that money and they stuff it in their mattress or build a little money house inside of the business. They don't do that. What they will do is they got to spend that money too. So when a business sells a product and they take in that money's got to do something. So what they got to do is they got to buy resources. They got to buy the ability and get the ability to be able to produce more of that product. If you're a business and you sell hats and you only sell one hat, you're not going to be around very much. What you need is the ability to make more hats. So you will take in that revenue money that you got from the last hat you sold, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to buy more resources to produce more hats. And this is where those factors of production come in that we talked about last time. You go to the resource markets, you buy the raw materials, you buy the workers, you pay them, but you buy the workers, you buy the machinery, you buy all the factors of production, the land, the labor, the capital, in order to produce more products, to produce more hats, to produce more hamburgers, to produce more, Xbox One or Xbox Scorpio or whatever they're going to call it now. At least that's the recording of this video. So for that to work, they got to spend that money. So they spend that money. Now the question is, where do they get the resources? Individuals. They're going to need workers. They're going to have to hire individuals. They're going to have to hire people from households in order to work in their factories, to work in their stores, to be their cashier, to be their manufacturing guy, to be their general manager. And, they're just not going to take people out the street and throw them in and say, hey, you're going to do this job. No, it's slavery. No, they're going to pay them. So the business is going to pay people for their time. So the firm, they will spend the money. That'll be a cost. And they're going to pay people to work for them in that resource market. So what happens is households will buy a product. That product they will get from the product market. The money they spend there goes to the business, the firm. That firm turns around and spends that money paying for employees. And that money goes back to the individuals. Then you got the government in the middle. Because the government, this is why you take government and economics at the same time, at least you are if you're watching this in Texas, and the government, they do these things called taxes. Now, what's supposed to happen is governments, they take this money, taxes, they tax individuals, households, they tax the businesses or the firms, they tax them. And in doing so, they provide public goods. They provide things like roads, sewage, water, those things that we need in order to pretty much keep going as a society. Firemen, policemen, all those things. All those things that are government paid for. Those are the public goods that government offers. And when they take this money in taxes, the government turns around and they spend it. They spend it on things like the product market, or they spend it on things in the resource market. So, like for example, government, they'll buy things like police cars, fire trucks, those things. They'll also buy things from the resource market. Workers. Me as a public school teacher, they got me from the resource market. That's really what happened. I'm an individual. I go into the resource market. I work in a public school, which is a government-funded institution. They take me from that. I work in a government school, for all intents and purposes, and they pay me the same way they would anything else. And then they tax me for it. So in a way, I kind of pay a few cents to my own paycheck. Interesting. And then on top of that, they can do things like subsidies, where the government can spit out direct money at people. So, for example, individuals, things like welfare, Social Security, those types of things, where the government will literally cut a check to individuals. Same time, they do things for companies, where they will cut a check to companies. For example, Google. Google receives a lot of government money to exist. Now, they may get a check directly, or they may just, have their taxes lowered. That's actually that's like the biggest thing that Google got to become as big as it was. They did not have to pay any California taxes when they were initially setting up. And again, those can be a result. Those can be an example of subsidies or even, tax breaks and those types of things. So, and then lastly, this is where we'll leave off. This is something we will get into a little later, but it's the idea of supply and demand. If you notice in the corners, you see demand and supply. Notice, like if you just look on the firm side, they have demand, they have supply. So firms, businesses, they have a demand for resources. They supply goods and services. On the flip side, you have households and individuals. They have demands for goods and services. And they supply the resources. So this is very much a synergistic type thing. And what any economist and any economy wants to see is they want to be able to see these things move. All right. If anything, like for example, take the money. If the money bottles up in the businesses, that's a bad thing. If it bottles up in the government, that's a bad thing. If it bottles up in households and individuals, that's a bad thing. You actually want the money to constantly be cycling and flowing and everything else. So you don't want any point in this for there to be a traffic jam. Because the minute things start getting bottlenecked somewhere, that is when you will begin to see the cycle begin to slow down. And then you will begin to see things like a depression or a recession or something along those lines. At the same time, there are some economists who say, and this is when we get to kind of economic ideas, we'll kind of touch on this, is if you're someone who's like a Keynesian economist, somebody that believes that the government should take a kind of center role in kind of managing the economy, what they want, what a Keynesian economist theorist would say is if this moves too slow, the government needs to do things to speed this up. If this is going too fast, the government needs to do things to slow it down. And in essence, this is kind of where you start having that debate of how much role should the government have in an economy. But that's, again, something for kind of another day. But these are just some things I want you to kind of think about. Because when you have in an economy, when you have this kind of model to kind of show how the economy is supposed to flow, the question that sometimes comes up and often comes up is who is going to be kind of in charge of this and running the show? Or should somebody be in charge and run the show? But yeah, that's something for kind of another day. But this is, again, just a cyclical flow model, and it's meant to really just show how the economy is supposed to flow and how those factors of production and those things are supposed to flow. That's about all for this. Peace out.